Happy February, everyone. This is Octagon Outlook. My name is James Lynch. Thank you so much for watching. We got a really great show today and a really great co-host joining me here on the program as we usually do. Today, we are joined by UFC Flyweight Brandon Royval on the program. Brandon, how's it going, man?
Yeah, good, bro. How you doing?
Doing well. It's always good to talk to you. Of course, we were kind of just talking off air. We've been doing interviews for a while, dating back to the LFA days. So it's great to get you back on here. Definitely got some questions as far as what's next for you and everything, but we got a lot to get into. Before we get into that, though, I just want to remind everyone to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. That's an easy way to support this show, and it doesn't cost you anything. It takes 2 seconds to do that. So we're happy to be back here. Obviously, we have a UFC card to talk about on Saturday. We're going to get right into it. UFC Vegas 18, UFC Fight Night Overeem versus Volkov. As we usually do, we're just going to stick to the main card. This is usually a recap show, but today we'll obviously talk about the fights. And let's start first on the main card. Really awesome rematch to kick things off. We've got Diego Ferreira taking on benil Darius. These two fought way back in 2014. It was Darius who got the best of Diego Ferreira in that fight. And just looking on blitzbet.eu, especially for you Canadian listeners, you can definitely bet on there. Blitzbet.eu, looking for the odds right now. And we have got Diego Ferreira as the favorite at -125, benil Darius at +101. That's kind of how I see this fight as well. Both have really turned things around in their career. Brandon, I want to get your thoughts on this fight. Two lightweights, and obviously two guys that are really making their mark in the weight class. What do you think of this fight?
Yeah, I think has Diego Ferreira lost since he lost against Darius? Did he just go unbeaten streak? Or he lost to Poirier?
He lost to Poirier right after, which, I mean, not bad having that on your resume right now, right?
Yeah, that's too. Like benil Darius is such a beast, I'm so glad that one of our teammates, Alex, has that on his record. To win over Darius is so important because he's so good, and he's one of those dudes. What do you have that like? Was it against Close where he was turned the fight around real quick? So it's like one of those you can't count him out at any given moment.
But, 100%. He finished Jakar, who had never been finished before either. So it was a big win for him. And then follow that up with a highlight reel finish over Scott Holtzman right after that. So Darius, both guys have. I mean, you mentioned. I'll just start to interject here. I mean, Ferreira has not lost since losing those back-to-back fights between Darius and Poirier back in 2014. The Poirier fight was in 2015. He's on a 6 fight win streak, including a win over Anthony Pettis in his last fight. So he's looked outstanding as far as Diego Ferreira goes.
Yeah, and we can say that almost right now is the closest thing to a champion is Poirier right now. As far if Khabib doesn't come back, Poirier's pretty much, you could think Poirier or Oliveira as the champion in my book. So man, he lost that who is right now as a champion and has been on a tear ever since. So that's important. And then same thing with Darius, man, he's been on a tear and looking mean. And I don't know. I think Ferreira edges him, but I'm not. You can't count Darius out. I'm probably going to be that way with everything. I'm so iffy about
No, it's fine. And listen, there's a lot of fights like that on the card. And we see this with the odds as well, where you're seeing Ferreira as a slight favorite. That's how I see this fight as well. Yeah. It's really tough to gauge because, the one thing with Darius earlier in his career, and I think he sort of corrected it, is the way to beat him is flurry him early. I mean, it's not just Hernandez, your teammate, who knocked him out early. There was a fight he had against Ramsey Nijem where the same thing happened, where Nijem came in, guns a-blazing, knocked out Darius. It seems like he's figured that out. In terms of, just being a little bit more patient and maybe not, engaging so much. So I don't think that'll happen against Ferreira. Also, Ferreira, not known as a quick finisher. If you look at a lot of his finishes outside of the Jared Gordon win, most of his finishes have happened, at least recently, in the second round. So I don't think Ferreira is going to come out guns a-blazing as well in this one. But what I look at in this fight is just the quality of opposition as well. Darius has definitely done some amazing things. He does have a win over a guy I know you're familiar with in Drew Dober, who trains over at Elevation Fight Team. But you look at, nothing against Frank Camacho or Jakar Close or Scott Holtzman. They aren't Anthony Pettis, Taisimov, and some of these other guys that Ferreira has beaten as well, including, Habulov, which was, I think the Habulov and Taisimov fight, he was an underdog in those. So for him to come back and take care of business should be interesting. Now, I did have a chance to speak to Ferreira before this fight. I know he did get a better camp this time around. He was supposed to fight Drew Dober in November, if you remember. Had some issues. I think there was some COVID-related stuff there as well. But the crazy thing about Diego Ferreira is that he actually drives, I think, 9 hours a week to go to and train at Fortis MMA. He has his own gym back in Texas, but he actually drives that far just to go to Fortis and get the training in. As far as what I've heard, he's had the opportunity to do that for this camp. So that means he's getting better training partners. He's working with Coach Safe. So I think the fact that he's had a better camp this time around, I think will also pay dividends. But I'm taking Ferreira in this fight, but this is one of those ones where I could see Darius, surprising everyone again. So just be careful when it comes to if you're betting this fight, but the pick's got to be Ferreira. Just looking at the two on paper, I think he's made more improvements over the last couple of fights and in terms of better opposition as well. So yeah, we're both going Ferreira on this fight. All right, next fight in the bantamweight division, really interesting one, and someone I know you've trained with very briefly here. You've got Cody Stamann taking on Andre Ewell, and right now on blitzbet.eu, I encourage you guys to head over there. Cody Stamann, a big favorite at -312. Andre Ewell +245. I talked about this on my show this morning. I think the odds are a little off here. I do expect Stamann to win this fight, and I again should disclose, like I said, you have trained with Cody Stamann in the past there, Brandon. I know briefly he was at Factory X. How do you look at this fight? Because I think it's wrestler versus striker, in terms of the matchup.
I think Cody Stamann dominates the fight and then loses the split decision. No, I'm just playing.
Yeah, like the Sonya Dunk fight kind of, although that was a draw, but yeah.
And then the Martinez fight, and like it just seems like a little bit of that. But I don't know, that's a good fight, man. Andre Ewell's so nasty with his hands. He's so long and he rips so like nicely that if he can keep Cody Stamann at the end of his punches and pop off, man, that's gonna be super important. But Cody Stamann, obviously the shorter man in the division, has to deal with that problem constantly. So him getting in is nothing new to him. And what was Cody Stamann's last fight?
It was Jimmy Rivera. It was a pretty one-sided fight. Rivera actually looked pretty good in that one, and Stamann didn't really have a lot of answers. So
Rivera looked good, and but Stamann looked tough. Like he has to get in there, and you have to go against a tough-ass striker in Andre Ewell. And I would like to say I'll give Rivera the power advantage between that. So it's not as scary to move in on Andre Ewell compared to Rivera, who just K's people. But Andre Ewell's nasty with his hands too, man. So, but I give it to Stamann. I think he finds a way to get in, close that distance, and start dominating that top position. Nasty wrestler, and I think he can use his power to get in there and get that takedown and kind of dominate on top. But never count Andre Ewell out, man. Like I said, if he can keep him at the end of the punches, man, that'd be so important for him.
So a couple things. Did have a chance to speak to Stamann before this fight. Basically talked about how he felt like he was overtrained. He was just sort of overdoing it heading into the Rivera fight. Actually, it was kind of the opposite now that I'm thinking about it. It wasn't that he overtrained. He almost felt like he needed to do more training sort of heading in here. So either way, it was a camp issue. He felt like his last fight, he felt like he could get away with certain things. He knows he can't take any shortcuts in the UFC, especially against a really tough guy in Jimmy Rivera. So not the outing you would have liked in terms of that. But you mentioned the wrestling. I mean, Stamann is one of the best wrestlers in that division. I think if he's able to utilize that, it could be a very long night for Andre Ewell. The thing I worry about though, Brandon, is that, Ewell is a very big bantamweight. If you're looking at the height and reach here, Ewell is 5'8" with a 75-inch reach. Cody Stamann is only 5'6" with a 64.5-inch reach. So really big reach advantage there, almost a 10-inch reach advantage there for Andre Ewell in this fight. And if he's able to keep Stamann at bay, it could get very interesting. But I tend to think that Ewell will be able to, or I think that Stamann will be able to get the takedowns and use his wrestling in this fight and potentially get a, pretty one-sided win. But I just warn people because of the height and reach with Ewell. The other thing is Ewell, and I'll say this, I mean, you don't have to say this, Brandon, but I don't think there's any way he beat Jonathan Martinez back at UFC 247. That was on the same card where they had the judging with, the Lauren Murphy fight, and there was the John Jones and Dominic Reyes fight where they felt like some of the judging was a bit. Yeah, the James Krause, against Trevin Giles.
The whole team, man.
Yeah, so you see the last two wins there for Ewell, both split decisions. The Martinez one for sure, I thought he lost. The Rivera fight, I thought he won, but still, this guy gets in close fights. So that's where I think it could get interesting if it does hit the judges' scorecards. Just be a little bit beware by that one. But with that said, I'm picking Cody Stamann in this fight. Am I going to bet -300? Probably not. I think it's a little too steep, but I do think that Stamann does get the job done and takes care of business and gets back on the winning track here. So we're both going Cody Stamann on this fight.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's get to the next fight. It's in Brandon's division. Alexander Pantoja taking on Manuel Cape. I love this fight because, obviously Cape's going to be making his UFC debut. Of course, he was supposed to be the backup to the Brandon Moreno and Davison Figueiredo fight. That did not need to happen because obviously they both ended up fighting here. But let's look at the odds here. Right now on blitzbet.eu, we've got Alexander Pantoja at -135. Manuel Cape is the underdog at +111. I understand it, but curious to get your thoughts as someone who competes in this division, Brandon. Who are you leaning on this one?
I think it's kind of like the same of the Cody Stamann and Andre Ewell. That there's like an obvious path to victory for both of them. You know what I'm saying? I think Pantoja's light years ahead of him on the ground. If he gets that fight to the mat for a second, it's over. Like I don't think Manuel Cape's ground game is anything compared to Pantoja's. Pantoja's jiu-jitsu is amazing. He's one of the best ground guys probably in the UFC right now. But as far as striking goes, man, Pantoja got that power. Pantoja has power, but as far as like dexterity and craziness and power, also is Manuel Cape beats him there. You know what I'm saying? Manuel Cape's an athlete. Manuel Cape's going to do some crazy stuff. Manuel Cape's going to gain a lot of USA fans this fight, honestly. Manuel Cape's going to gain a lot of fans. And this is another great fight for the flyweight division, man. I'm so excited. Like, the flyweight division's so fire right now, and that's going to be one of those, like if Pantoja can't take him down or doesn't look for the takedown, obviously, then Pantoja's going to throw hands and he's going to throw hard as hard as he can, and so is Manel Cape, So it's going to be a great fight, but I think Pantoja edges him. I think Pantoja can land a bomb on him, and I think Pantoja can submit him, and I think that there's an obvious difference in the ground game, and I think the striking's Manel Cape's for sure, but I think Pantoja just hits hard enough to nullify it. I think when he fought Matt Snell, I thought Matt Snell's a better striker. I just think Pantoja hits a lot harder, and he's willing to put himself in danger to get that punch. And he's pretty long for the division. That being said, too, so I give it to Pantoja, but I think Manel Cape's about to gain a lot of USA fans, man, and good on him, man. He deserves that. He deserves to gain that clout, because that's gonna be a fucking sweet ass fight. You know what I'm saying? And when me and him meet one day, so.
Yeah, I was going to say you're probably keeping a close eye on this one. The winner of this, some big implications
sure.
there. So a couple of things we did interview Cape here on the channel. Check it out, guys. Really good stuff. Talking mainly about his training camp. Thailand's pretty much closed down. If you guys know that Cape's a mainstay at AKA Thailand over there with Mike Swick. Didn't have a chance to train over there, but he's been training somewhere pretty damn good in the U.S. at American Kickboxing Academy in the U.S. in San Jose. So I think that's a good call for him. I know there's a few flyweights over there that he's getting a chance to work with. So I like the fact that he's training over here, because this fight's in Vegas, which means it won't be a long travel time for him. And we can't overstate his last couple wins, back-to-back stoppage wins over Takeya Mizugaki, the UFC vet, and Kaya Asakura, who has just been lighting it up and rising. I mean, Kaya Asakura, when he had that fight, he was 14-1 heading into the matchup. So that's a huge win. That's a UFC quality win, in my opinion. So anyone thinking that we're going to see someone coming from another organization and they haven't fought good enough competition is wrong. And even look at his losses here. I mean, losing to Horiguchi in the third round, that's not that bad. I mean,
Horiguchi might be the best flyweight in the world right now.
Exactly.
We don't know that. He might be the best flyweight in the world right now. And that being said, is Horiguchi AKA? Is that what
Horiguchi's at American Top Team?
Oh, American Top Team. Yeah. Okay, cool. I was like, I've heard stories about Horiguchi. Horiguchi's a nasty motherfucker, and he should be Manel Cape. He could be the best flyweight in the goddamn world right now. That being said, that's what's crazy about the UFC is that right now we have Horiguchi in Risen, and then we have John Johnson in
Demetrius Johnson in one, yeah.
Oh man, I don't know.
Maybe a cross promotion. We'll see. They seem a little bit more generous that way.
Yeah, I feel cool. I feel cool because I'm number 6 right now, and then they're then you think of there's 2 other fucking studs outside there. So am I number 6 right now? And it's I don't know, man. This is crazy. But I'm sorry. What was the question again?
No, there's no question. I was just sort of talking about how, what Cape sort of brings to the table here. And Pantoja, coming off the loss to Askar Askarov, that was a fight I think would have probably given him a title shot, at least gotten him close to it. So that was a key fight. We know Askarov now fighting Joseph Benavidez off that. But he lost a decision to Davison Figueiredo, which, looking back now, not bad considering Figueiredo finishes a lot of his opponents. I know Brandon Moreno has been the exception to the rule, but still, that's not bad that he went the distance there. And he also has a win over Brandon Moreno as well. In terms of level of competition, I think you give a slight edge there to Pantoja, but Cape has been battle tested, like I said, with those last couple fights. I'm going with the upset here. I think Cape performs well. I'm very high on him. I think he keeps this fight standing, and I think I give him the edge in the striking. You just see the power that he possesses as a flyweight. I think this is going to be his coming out party, and I think the UFC knows that as well. That's why they gave him this fight. Like I mentioned, he was the backup to the flyweight title fight. They think very highly of him, and I think a lot of other people do as well. So I think Cape is an underdog. I'll take him. I think there's a possibility he goes up there, surprises a lot of people, and he puts himself in a good position for that contender spot. We know that Figueiredo and Moreno is going to happen next. We know Cody Garbrandt's still looming around the division, but I think this is a key fight, and maybe a fight too that could perhaps fight the winner of this fight could fight my co-host here today. So we'll see. There's a lot of implications for this fight, but I'm going to go with the underdog in Manel Cape.
Yeah. I'm going to stick with Pantoja on this one. I think one takedown gets the submission done. But that being said, is Manel Cape's a beast, and I agree in the coming out party part is this is all good for the flyweight division, and having Manel Cape in our division is really great.
Okay, we've got a couple more fights to go through. Also on the main card, we've got Marion Renault taking on Macy Chasson in the women's bantamweight division. Right now, the odds makers have Macy Chasson as about a 2-1 favorite, minus 217 over at blitzbet.eu. The comeback on Marion Renault plus 175. I get it. Chasson, it's an interesting fight because obviously Renault, I know she doesn't have that many more fights than Macy Chasson, but she's fought the who's who: Holly Holm, Raquel Pennington, Beth Correia, Yana Kunitsakaya, Kat Zingano. That's far better than a lot of
records look so lopsided in the sense of her record's a little more even because she's been battle tested, as you said, you know what I'm saying, compared to the pretty record on the other side.
Exactly. Now Chasson, a lot younger here, 29 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. So she's going to be bigger than Marion Renault. Marion Renault only 5'6" with a Marion Renault is 43 years old. I got to get her secret. I want to look like her when I'm her age.
Yeah,
like, I mean, she's looked outstanding. She actually posted something on Facebook, like a 10-year, that 10-year thing. And she looks identical. Like, she's been really keeping care of herself, and kudos to her. I did have a chance to speak to both fighters before this one. Basically, Marion Renault had an injury, wasn't able to come back. She's supposed to fight Caitlin Vieira in I think it was September. So now she gets this fight. And I like the matchup because really it's a veteran against a prospect. Chasson has looked good outside that one loss to Lena Landsberg. But it's going to be outside of that one Landsberg fight. She's been pretty dominant. I remember the Sarah Morris fight completely outmuscled her, and Chasson might not have the experience, but the fact that she's been working her craft at Fortis MMA and getting some really high level training there, we're seeing that from fight to fight as well. Right. So
she has good people, especially in that weight class. Right. Wasn't Stevenson or whatever? He's a Fortis MMA guy, right?
Steven Peterson.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she's got some girls to work with as well. Cheyenne Bays is there. Being the
card.
Who else is there, sir?
Is he supposed to be on that card? This card? Steve Peterson was supposed to be on this card, right?
Yes, and then he got injured. That's right. Yeah. So
cool.
So he's off that card. But yeah, kind of getting to your point though. A lot of the Fortis fighters have fights coming up. I know they
35ers, 25ers buys. They have Cheyenne buys, and then that means that they probably have JP buys, which
JP I think is great looks as well.
Man. Yeah, she's getting great looks at her weight class. Size advantage, the young factor, all that stuff's kind of going towards her way. You know what I'm saying? As much as I hate it, like my idols are starting to lose, and like it starts to suck when you see like Anderson Silva take these losses to these young guys. Is just like the young bucks are starting to take over right now, and I think I'm just kind of ride that wave with her.
Yeah, I'm going Chasson as well. It'll be interesting because Renault's lost 3 in a row. And granted, she's losing to Kat Zingano, Yannick Kunsakai, and Raquel Pennington. At 43, I'd be very hard-pressed to see them give her another fight. So it's kind of do or die here for Renault, I think. With Chasson, I mean, not that you want to lose, but I think as she loses this fight, it's not the end of the world. She's coming off a win over Shawnee Young in her last fight. And had some health issues as well. If you haven't heard, Macy Chasson had minor, I believe, heart surgery last year. Had a sort of a genetic issue that sort of held her back a little bit. So, I mean, again, she's had some health stuff. She also got COVID as well. So there was a combination of things that happened, last year. That's all behind her now. She's really ready to show her stuff. And I think this is a good opportunity for her to do it. So I think, getting her at 2-1 odds, I think it's worth it. I mean, obviously Renault has more experience in terms of the UFC fights, but I think Chasson, this is her fight to lose. I think it's an opportunity for her to show that she is really legit in this division. And I think Marion Renault is the right opponent. So I'm going to also take Macy Chasson on this fight over Marion Renault.
Let's
get to the co-main event. One I'm sure you're going to be keeping an eye on. I know it's a different weight class, but still, it's kind of a fun fight here. We've got Cory Sandhagen taking on Frankie Edgar. And check this out, Brandon. Cory Sandhagen is a minus 455 favorite. Frankie Edgar plus 335. I think those odds are a little steep, but I'm curious to get your thoughts. Who do you like in this fight?
I mean, that's a huge that's crazy odds. You can't ever count Frankie Edgar out, man. I can't believe that they're like unbalanced. But that being said, is Cory Sandhagen is the truth, man. He's the new wave. You know what I'm saying? He's untouchable, especially if he can keep the fight standing, man. He's going to be great. He has movement on his feet, his footwork. I think he can avoid the takedowns, and I think that he'll be good on the feet and striking. But like I said, this is another one of those things where like Frankie Edgar needs to make it dirty and come out and be a little bit more of that like nasty, like throw a couple punches, shoot in, make it nasty, and grind Cory down, because that's his style. And Cory's such a pretty fighter and such a like you're saying, like I'm going to be watching that fight because this is a fight you have to take notes as a fighter. Is like Cory's so good and ahead of the curve of most of the guys in the weight class that you have to watch this guy perform because you need to get on what he's on. We all need to step our game up towards this guy. So that being said, is that I'll give it to Cory, but if Edgar can make this fight nasty, man, and do what he does, that's a hard style to compete with, especially when you have that pretty flashy style. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, man. That's a crazy matchup, and it's crazy that he's that big of a factor. But good for him, man. Cory should be the champion, in my opinion.
Yeah, a lot of things going into this fight. So yeah, Sandhagen has a lot of advantages here. A lot younger. He's 28 years old. Edgar is what, 39. So big age difference there. Sandhagen's also 5'11" with a 70-inch reach. Edgar 5'6" with a 68-inch reach. So like he is in most of his fights, Sandhagen is the bigger fighter. We've seen this time and time again.
And he uses it really well. He uses that to the full. He uses every little bit of his inch advantage. You know what I'm saying? And he draws it out. You see with Marlon Moraes, he's just poking him from the outside and drawing out these big shots so he can land his big shots later on. You know what I'm saying? So he's really good at that. But the difference is Frank Edgar has that wrestling pedigree, you know?
That's where things get interesting. You know, had
Yeah.
Sandhagen not lost the way he did to Aljamain Sterling, I would maybe agree with the odds here about it being this high. But I mean, we're only 2 fights removed from him losing to Sandhagen pretty quickly. I mean, that was a first round submission. That was supposed to be a really competitive fight. It did not end up being that way. Aljo went out there, he gave an A+ performance, and Sandhagen not only suffers his first UFC loss, but first stoppage loss in his career. So that is one thing to kind of take pause at. Now, look, not going to take anything away from the wheel kick knockout he had over Marlon Moraes. That was outstanding. What a way to get back in the contender seat by, you know, knocking out a guy in Marlon Moraes who's knocked out plenty of guys himself. So that was a huge win there as well. Now for Frankie Edgar, bantamweight debuted successful, but almost wasn't successful. I actually scored that fight for Pedro Munoz. If you remember, that was at the UFC Fight Night card on back in August. And yeah, look, I thought Munoz did enough to win. The judges didn't, but that is one thing to keep in mind in this fight, because I don't think Edgar's going to finish Cory Sandhagen. I don't think Sandhagen's going to finish Frankie Edgar. You look at Edgar and who he's got finished by, Korean Zombie and Brian Ortega. That's it. I mean, that's rare, right? Like those are two high-level featherweights in a different weight class, right?
And like so he had some gaps between his fights too, right? So Frankie Edgar, between those fights, it's been like almost like 2.5 years between total, like with that. And
so the Ortega loss was in 2018 in March. The Holloway, the Sanchung, the Korean Zombie fight was December of 2019. So yeah, probably a year, I guess, since he's been finished.
And then it was the Pedro Munoz fight, and then now we're fighting Cory Sandhagen.
Exactly.
Yeah. See, those are hard. That's like potentially 3 losses going into this Cory Sandhagen do or die fight almost. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And Cory Sandhagen's riding a high of just this knockout and all that stuff. So I don't know. Another question is, and like, I don't know if this plays a big factor like that much, but they're fighting in the small cage in Vegas, right? So the cage is a little bit smaller. It gives Cory Sandhagen a little bit less room to work with.
Great point.
And you see it with the Wonder Boy in that small cage. He shined a little bit better because now he has to fight a little bit more. So he's using his angles to step in. See if Cory Sandhagen can do that and avoid that takedown the whole entire time with a little bit less room, you know?
Now, this is only a 3-round fight, so that does make things interesting. I actually think that favors Cory in a way, because Cory's not known for fighting in main events. Edgar, you know, has that championship experience when he's lightweight champion. So I think that does favor Cory. I'm picking Cory here, but I think the best bet in this fight, honestly, and I looked at it, I think there's you can get the fight goes the distance prop. You can find that on any of your books, whether it's on blitzbet.eu or anywhere. I think it's just under 2-1. And I don't see a finish in this fight. I mean, Cory did finish his last opponent. Frankie's a pretty tough guy to finish overall. I know he's getting up there in age. And conversely, Edgar's last finish was Chad Mendes back in December 2000 and where are we here? 2015. So it's been forever since Edgar finished a fight. So I don't think we'll see that happen here. I think that's a likely, if you're getting some better value there, or just take Sandhagen by decision. I don't think he's going to be, able to finish Edgar as well. So if you're on the Sandhagen side, like I am, 4-1, a little high, maybe try and look for that decision prop as well, just because Sandhagen is a guy that, doesn't finish a lot of his opponents. I know he finished the last one, but in general, if you look at Lineker, you look at some of these other opponents, Sun Tzu, they usually go the distance. So yeah, we're both going with Sandhagen on this one, but can never count out Frankie Edgar. That's why I don't think he should be a 4-1 favorite. Okay, main event.
I hate myself forever, and especially as a child for saying this, but I disagree, and I say Cory Sandhagen gets finished. I say he gets the early finish to get that fight done, and damn, I hate myself for saying that. I love Frankie Edgar so much, but
no, for sure. It's tough.
I think
a lot
Cory
of us.
Sandhagen just has the utensils to get it done. I think he can walk him into punches, and I think he can set up that final finishing shot, especially Frankie Edgar being 39 at 135, cutting that weight. And I mean, it's probably not that big of a weight cut. He's 5'6", and he just hasn't been cutting weight his whole entire career. So, but I think Cory Sandhagen just that new star, you know.
He certainly is. Let's get to the main event. Alistair Overeem, Alexander Volkov. Love this fight. This was supposed to take place in April of 2019. Volkov got injured, wasn't able to take it. So now we get it here. And I think it's a lot more interesting now, just seeing where both guys have gone since then. Let's look on blitzbet.eu. Right now, Alexander Volkov, the favorite, -192. Overeem, the underdog, +153. I mean, I get it. This is such an interesting fight to me because, first off, I think it's great matchmaking in terms of where they're ranked in the division. I think they're fairly close in terms of the rankings, but also it's a pivotal fight for both because both have had trouble getting to that title spot. I know Overeem did fight for the title, but I'm saying in general, him getting back to that spot, a win over Volkov would likely do that. And conversely for Volkov, he's had some setbacks. He lost to Lewis. That was a big one that sort of halted his title aspirations as well. Now, typically Overeem is a guy that's, used to being sort of the bigger guy in there, although Overeem did fight at light heavyweight, but Overeem is 6'4" with an 80-inch reach. Volkov is 6'7" with an 81-inch reach. So just a 1-inch reach advantage, but he's way taller than his opponent. And like Brandon mentioned with Cory Sandhagen, you got to be a good fighter to utilize your height and reach. So they're just we're pointing that
some
out.
fighters it doesn't matter. Like some fighters really doesn't matter because they don't use it well. But Cory Sandhagen will use all of it. And Volkov, I think, is a little bit smarter. And I think he can kind of keep that like end of the punch thing. But I'll still give it to Volkov. I'll give the decision to Volkov because you even saying that Derek Lewis fight. Derek Lewis, he was dominating the whole entire fight and then got knocked out. Literally the last second. Oh, and then they gave Derek Lewis the performance of the night that night. Funniest thing ever. Yeah. I think he's just been doing good. You know what I'm saying? And I love Alistair Overeem, man. Great fighter, legend of the sport. All this, not enough good stuff can be said about that guy, but. I don't know. I think Volkov could get the job done, and I think he can finish a decision, maybe a submission, but most likely a decision.
So here's the thing with Overeem as well. Like Overeem typically, at least recently, how he wins his fights is early. He goes out there, Pavlovic, first round finish. Oleinik, first round finish. Walt Harris, second round finish in a fight where he was in trouble in the first round. Sakai was a fifth round finish. I mean, that's probably the latest finish he's had in his career. But in general, Overeem is a fast starter. And if he can get you out there early, that's typically how he wins. Well, guess what? Volkov's a tough guy to finish. Just ask his teammate, Curtis Blades. He tried everything he could to finish Volkov. It wasn't happening. And he got a lot of shit for it. People calling him a boring fighter. But it's just, I don't think it's a case of Blades not finishing. It's that Volkov's that tough. You talked about the Derek Lewis fight. That was at the last minute. You have to go all the way back to 2015, I think. Let me just double check that. 2013, November 2013 was the last time Volkov was finished outside of the Lewis fight. So this guy is very durable. He can take a punch. That's why I can't see Overeem winning this fight because I don't see him finishing Volkov early. And I think the longer the fight goes, I actually think that favors Volkov. I think he's a guy that's, learned from his past mistakes when it comes to, say the Derek Lewis fight. And I think as Overeem gets, more and more tired, trying to go out there and finish him, I don't think it's going to work in his favor. It's one thing to fight a Walt Harris, where, Harris is maybe a little bit inexperienced, wasn't able to sort of manage his energy very well because, like I said, he had Overeem hurt in that first round, wasn't able to capitalize. It was Overeem who finished him in the second round. So, and it's actually interesting because Volkov just finished Walt Harris in his last fight as well in the second round too. So we know Volkov can finish you in the fight. The scenario I see happening is one of two things. Either Volkov finishes Overeem late, where it's like later in the fight, maybe third, fourth, fifth round around there, or he gets a decision. I don't think a decision is likely. I think with a 5-round fight, you are going to see a finish, but
heavyweight too.
At the same time, I think this is Volkov's fight to lose. He's got a lot of advantages there. Like I said, younger guy, height and reach advantage. I thought he looked better against Walt Harris than Overeem did. I know you can't go into MMA math that much, but I just don't see a scenario where Overeem goes up there and blitzes Volkov early. It could happen. We've seen that in other fights, but I just think right now Overeem taking way too much damage. And we talk about his knockout wins in the UFC, but think of the knockout losses Overeem's had. Rosenstrike, Blades got finished on the ground. Nagano, Stipe, Rothwell, Travis Brown, Antonio Bigfoot Silva. Like this guy's been knocked out.
This is the UFC too. We're not talking about Pride. We're not talking about any of the other K1 or any of the other stuff. This is just UFC. You know what I'm saying? So he's taken a lot of damage throughout his career, and it's crazy.
Volkov really hasn't, right? Like he really hasn't. 2 knockout losses in however many fights he's had. I mean, that's one thing to keep in mind here. In 40 fights, 2 knockout losses. Think about that. So
and in the scariest division to get hit by anybody, you don't want to get hit by any of those heavyweights, any of those jabs, and none of those, like all those punches are going to do damage, so that's impressive in itself. And I think he has the skill set to get it done, but also talking about Overeem and like how many times he's been knocked out, he still can take a fucking punch, man. He can still like
Harris almost had him out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And he still recovered, ended up on top, and that crafty veteranship can never be counted out almost. But we'll give the advantage to the new younger fighter.
Absolutely. Before we exit this card, just wanted to quickly mention we did do an interview with Clay Guida here on the channel. Definitely check that out. Really good stuff talking about his camp and how his conditioning has been taken to another level. So definitely tune into that. He's fighting Michael Johnson, who has actually switched camps for this fight. Johnson no longer at Sanford MMA. He's actually training in Arizona with Jakar Close. So interested to see how Johnson looks. You look at Johnson's record, and you don't think he's very good, but he's fought the who's who, has a knockout win over Dustin Poirier. Very interesting fight. And this is a fight between two guys who've been in the UFC for a while, including Clay Guida. He's been in the UFC since October of 2006. So good for Guida, still sticking it out. Just wanted to mention that little tidbit.
Both a little bit of a do or die fight, right? They're both on riding a little bit of a losing streak, which is crazy. Because I remember thinking when Johnson first came into the UFC, I was like, that guy's a world champion. Like he has so much potential. So his skill set is so high that what a great fight.
All right, let's quickly talk about this card and some of the implications here. I talked about the Frankie Edgar and Cory Sandhagen fight, and there's some big implications here as we have this bantamweight title fight coming up between Petr Yan and Aljamain Sterling. And Brandon, I think if Frankie Edgar wins on Saturday, and we're both picking against him, but if he wins, I think he's the next guy to fight for the title, in my opinion, because it's a fresh matchup. Edgar's never fought Jan or Sterling. And I think Edgar, it would be such a cool moment for him to see get him get another title shot in a different weight class. Think about it. He's been the lightweight champion. He's had a couple shots at featherweight. For him to get a bantamweight title shot at his age, I think makes a lot of sense. And I think his name value is the type of fight that would make things pretty interesting here. Again, we're not picking Edgar this Saturday, but if Edgar does win, I think this is a slam dunk move, as opposed to what we're hearing about TJ Dillashaw potentially stepping in and getting an immediate title shot. I am against that. If you get busted for steroids, I know he got busted. He's saying it was just for the flyweight fight. I think in general, when you get suspended for steroids and you're a champion, I think you should have to take another fight, and not the title fight immediately when you get back. So that's why if Edgar wins on Saturday, I would like to see him get the title shot as opposed to Dillashaw jumping in line and getting in there. Look, Dillashaw should get a contender. I'm not denying that. I think there's a lot of interesting fights for him, whether it's Jose Aldo, Rob Font. I think there's a lot of good matchups for him there, but Dillashaw should not get a title shot here. And I think Sandhagen and I think Edgar should get the title shot. Now, why am I not saying Cory Sandhagen? Because if Aljo wins, I don't really want to see that rematch with him and Cory Sandhagen right away. If Jan wins, you could potentially do that as well. But I like I said, I think Edgar, out of all those names there, has the most weight, being a former champion. So, Brandon, what is your thoughts on that? Do you think Edgar should get the shot? I'm more so saying Dillashaw shouldn't get the shot. That's kind of what I'm getting at here.
More than anything, I agree that Dillashaw should not get that shot at all. He's riding a loss, and then he got caught for steroids. And we may say that he only used it for the flyweight division, which is, we all know, is kind of bullshit, because we seen him get called out by Cody Garbrandt with all them using steroids at Alpha Male. He exposed all of them. You know what I'm saying? Cody Garbrandt's like, you taught us how to use steroids. This was back when they fought, which is way before the fucking his flyweight title shot. So there's no way they're on steroids the whole entire time throughout that. Like, it's bullshit to believe anything different. But I disagree with I think Cory Sandhagen deserves the title shot no matter who wins that. I think no matter what happens, the winner of this fight is a title eliminator. And I would love to see the matchup between Jan and Cory Sandhagen. The striking match between those two, man, would be pure beauty, man. I could imagine that matchup. And the MMA match's so weird, because like, what happens if Peter Yan beats Aljo? Aljo beats Cory Sandhagen, and Cory Sandhagen beats Peter Yan. Then it's just gonna be a cycle between those three studs, man. And then you cycle TJ Dillashaw in, and
no pun intended.
I was gonna say that. I was like,
but no, the only thing I'll disagree with you there is that, like, had Sandhagen lost a close decision, or had he lost a fight where he was finished late in the fight and he might have been winning, Aljo gave almost a flawless performance in that fight against Sandhagen. So that's why I'm a little bit more reluctant to give Sandhagen the rematch if he does end up beating Edgar and it is Aljo who comes out on top. That's my only reservation. In most cases, I would be fine with it, but it's just the fact that he lost so decisively to Aljo the first time. I don't know if that's a fight we want to see right away, but nonetheless, I would rather have Sandhagen get the shot in a rematch against Sterling than I would have Dillashaw coming back. So we can kind of find common ground there. Am I right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I'm always going to back up the Colorado guys as much as possible. It'd be so.
There you go.
I've watched Cory Sandhagen fight as like an amateur, and like been on some of the same cards as him. Him getting a title shot would be great for the whole entire state, and Colorado May's killing it, so it'd be great to see him be the champion one day.
So we also talked about the main event of this card, and if you didn't see, Brandon and I both picking Alexander Volkov to get it done, and if that's the case, and Volkov does come out victorious, whether it's a finish or not, I think this has got to be the end of Alistair Overeem if he does not win on Saturday. He's 40 years old. He's taken a ton of punishment in the UFC. He's not fighting for a title. If he loses this is his last shot as far as I'm concerned. And I know he's coming into this fight on a 2-fight win streak, but I think the chances of him fighting for the title after losing this fight on Saturday, if he does, I'm not saying he will, but let's say he does lose this fight, I don't think there's any reason for Overeem to keep fighting, because the whole thing of him even sticking around in the UFC was to try and get that one more shot at a title and see if he could do it, because he's a Strikeforce champ, Dream champ, K1 champ, but he's never had the opportunity to have UFC gold. Yeah. And I think this is the time. If he loses this Saturday, I think that's it. And look, I know that, the last couple fights, like I said, he's been winning, and he hasn't been brutally knocked out in all of his fights, but the Harris fight, he nearly got finished. He got finished by Rosenstruik. If this is another finish, especially, I don't see any reason for Overeem to continue his career here as well. And not just mention, the timing of this fight is pretty terrible right now. You've got Ngannou and Stipe rematching coming up here. I believe it's in April or later in the year. You've got John Jones entering the picture. You've got Overeem's teammate, Curtis Blades, who's has a win over him that's in this equation. And assuming all goes well with him against Derek Lewis, he's in the mix as well. Like, where would Overeem even go? Let's say he does win this fight. Where do you put him at this point? So I just think Overeem, this is kind of do or die for Overeem. If he doesn't win this, I think it's time to retire. I know I'm a guy just behind a camera right here, but I think for the sake of where he wants to go in his career, I think that's it. And I don't think he should go to Bellator either. They got some killers over there. Let's just let's just walk off into the sunset and find a different career. That's my thoughts on that. What do you think of that, Brandon?
I don't even think he needs to find a different career. What a fucking legend, man. I've been watching Overeem for over a decade, you know? I've been watching Overeem. I'd stay up all night to go watch Overeem fight and I watched Overeem when he was like 170. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we grew together.
Yeah.
But that being said is, like, there's nothing wrong with retiring for someone like that, you know? If I could have half of what he's accomplished, man, and I could retire like that, I would be so happy about that, you know? Like, what a legend, man. So there's no shame in retiring, man. And I get the competitiveness. And I really do think in the heavyweight division, even if he loses this fight, he could probably end up getting back in title contention within the next year somehow. But yeah, I don't think there's like, that being said, I don't think there's anything wrong with retiring with him too, man. He's just great. And he's done so many great things for the sport and a pioneer of the sport. And his accomplishments throughout the sport is unheard of, man. Is there anybody that's accomplished in MMA as he is?
No, not from as many different promotions. You're absolutely right on that.
Yeah. Was he a champion like 170 and goddamn Pride? Like he was a champion all the way up. You know what I'm saying? Like what an accomplishment, man. Yeah. So as much as I still think he could get the job done and be like a contender in the heavyweight division in the UFC, but I wouldn't be sad to like if you're retired. Like good for him, man. So I don't. Either way, I'm flip floppy about it. I think he can still have a career in the heavyweight division probably for a couple more years, but if you're retired, it's probably a good thing.
I agree. And I'll just agree with you on one point about him. You know, even if he loses this, I think that's it because you've already got other guys on the come up. You've got Cyril Gane fighting Rosenstruik. If he wins that fight, he's a contender now. You've got, you got Blades, you've got John Jones in here. It's all going to get messed up. I mean, if this was Overeem in the middleweight division right now where, Izzy has to move up to take another fight because he doesn't have anyone else to compete, it would be a different story. But he's in one of the worst divisions to try and get a title shot right now because of the fact there's so much activity going on. So agree to disagree on that one, but I think we do agree on the retirement thing if he does lose. Another bit of news we got to talk about this week, or happened last week. It's now official. I know we talked about this on the show before, but I'll bring it up again. Ben Askren is boxing Jake Paul. Your reaction to that, Brandon Royval, as Ben Askren competing against him?
Not good, right? That's a horrible idea. That kid's young. He has hands. All he's been doing for the last year and probably 3 years, just been boxing, working on boxing. Watching that kid in his mansion has a boxing ring in the middle of his mansion. Why wouldn't go face him in anything that's not MMA? In an MMA fight, I'll bet on Ben Askren all day, every day. But in a boxing match, you're gonna go challenge Jake Paul or Logan or whatever the fuck it is.
It's Jake Paul. Yeah, it's brother.
Jake Paul. Yeah, that kid's good, man. He's a not like he's not gonna be a world champion boxer, but he's a good boxer. Like he'll probably beat a local pro for sure, and he's definitely gonna beat Ben Askren in a boxing match. That's all that kid's been focusing on, and he might even have I think he has a size advantage, a reach advantage, definitely all that stuff. I can't even believe Ben Askren's taking it. But I don't know. If it comes down to strategy, maybe Ben Askren can kind of hold on to him, gas him out a little bit if we're going down to strategy and all that. But I think it's a horrible idea. I think it's horrible.
Well, this is the thing. Ben's a pretty smart guy. Like Ben has other interests outside of the sport. I mean, we've interviewed him here on Line Movement, and he's got a lot going on outside the cage. So I don't think it's a money thing. I think it's more of he just wants to show that, hey, look, I feel like I can beat up this guy. And he's talking about this in interviews. It's not like he's boxing Mike Tyson. He's boxing Jake Paul. This is what's so fascinating to me. A couple things. Because first off, a lot of fighters that I've spoken with agree with you. They think that Ben's going to get destroyed. And I get it. His stand-up against Damian Maia, atrocious. I mean, no one can deny that. It was probably one of the worst striking performances we've ever seen in the UFC. However, this guy's an Olympian. He's a martial artist. I know that he was relying more on his wrestling in a lot of those fights. I get it. But I just can't see a guy like that taking an opportunity like this, not thinking he can win or not. And he doesn't seem like a guy that's around people that are delusional. I think, there's probably some people around him saying, look, you can do this. You've been trained as a martial artist for years. Jake Paul's been doing boxing. How long? Maybe a couple of years. Now, granted, Paul's getting the best training he could have. I think he's working with DJ Flores or whoever. I can't remember. But he's getting some really good training. And he looked great in his last fight. But let's call it what it is. He beat up an NBA player. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the one thing where I think people get blinded a little bit. Nate Robinson had no combat sports experience. That's no different than, someone fighting, someone that's an athlete of a different sport. Like it doesn't make a difference. It's like going to beat up Sidney Crosby. So, I mean, Nate Robinson was going to lose that fight regardless. He's fighting a guy who took boxing very seriously. He was, the Paul brothers both have a wrestling background. That's the other thing as well, that, they do come from some sort of athletics on top of that. So there's that as well. And then there's the whole thing as well about, is he going to be able to knock out Askren? Because Askren took Robbie Lawler's best shots. And I know that fight was controversial, but he still survived it and was able to come back and get the win.
Yeah, and people don't talk about how much of an ass whooping he's taken throughout his career, man. Ben Askren's known for wrestling and a chin. Wrestling
Yeah.
at chin. He's taking.
That's what makes it interesting, though,
right,
Brandon, is that he can take a Lawler shot. Yes, he got knocked out by Masvidal, but he literally did the worst thing you can do against a guy throwing a flying knee, and that was duck under. It's similar to, if you guys have a chance, go watch the first Verdum and Junior Dos Santos fight. Verdum has his head low. JDS has his uppercut coming. It was like a perfect shot for JDS to get the knockout. Same sort of thing happened with Askren and Masvidal, where Masvidal
how many times does that happen to him throughout the career too? Like Ben Askren's eating those knees to the face while he's winning takedowns.
I mean, the Luis Santos fight maybe, but kind of the point I'm getting at is that if you look at Askren overall, I mean, he definitely took the most damage, I think, in the Lawler fight. But in general, if he can take a shot from guys who actually have knockout power, like a Robbie Lawler, like a Masvidal, I think he's going to do okay against Jake Paul. We'll see. Again, because how's Askren going to win? That's the question. He's not going to knock him out. He himself, Ben, has said it's probably likely a decision or a late finish. So I think if Askren's smart, he goes to a boxing gym. He doesn't go with Roufusport. I know he's talked about that. And I know Roufusport has done great things with Anthony Pettis and a lot of the other fighters that have trained there. But I think Askren's got to go to a boxing gym if he has any shot at this thing. But I'll tell you what, Brandon, if Askren's plus money, which I think he is right now, I've been looking at some of the odds books, I'll throw some money on him. I just can't see Askren trying to embarrass himself again when he already had one of the most embarrassing moments in UFC history, getting kneed on a huge card, right? And it was a highlight reel finish that was played over and over again. So that's my thoughts on it. I actually find it intriguing because of the fact that it's Askren who's fighting him. If it was, someone else who had left the UFC recently, it might be a different story, but that's what makes it so intriguing. Can a YouTuber beat a guy in Ben Askren? We'll have to see. So
I think it's interesting too, because that's what bothered me too, is I'm like, Ben Askren's super smart. Like, why would he take a fight without doing it? So maybe he does know something we don't know. But that being said, is I can't picture him out there going out there and boxing Jake Paul, throwing jabs and slipping jabs and throwing 1-2s down the pipe and all that stuff. And I think he's going to have to make it a dirty fight to even stand a chance. And he's going to have to make that a dirty fight early in the first 3 rounds and hopefully gas him out and put him away later on,
Very well said. I do want to touch on one more news thing, but if anyone's watching this live and you have any questions, be sure to submit them there as well. I did want to touch on one piece of news, and then we'll get to you, Brandon, as well, and then we'll get to questions after, as we're wrapping the show up here pretty soon. This Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira thing that Poirier is kind of proposing. I don't know if you saw this morning, Poirier did an interview with Mike Bond over at MMA Junkie, and he talked about how Dustin's fine with Chandler and Oliveira fighting for the belt, which tells me that I think Dustin wants money fights. That's the sense I'm getting. So whether it's the McGregor trilogy, whether it's a fight with Nate Diaz, which look, based off merit, Nate Diaz does not deserve a shot at Dustin whatsoever. But I do see it from a business standpoint where they have a history. They were supposed to fight on the New York card back in 2017. You've got some serious hate there. Dustin's this, professional, well put together guy. You've got Nate Diaz who's sort of a wild card in a good way. Fans love him for that. He's, swearing and, he's a Stockton guy, right? Like there's a nice buildup if that fight was to happen. So what do you think of this? Do you think Poirier, do you like that he's trying to get money fights, or do you think he should, try and go for the belt because he just beat Conor McGregor?
I think the money fight is probably the smartest in the long term, right? I think he goes out there, fights Nate Diaz. I think that he could get the job done with Nate Diaz. I don't think that it's going to be an easy fight. I think Nate Diaz comes prepared. I think Nate Diaz looks good, and but I think that he could potentially win that fight for sure. And it makes sense. He's probably bringing a lot more money fighting Nate Diaz in comparison to fighting Charles Oliveira or Michael Chandler. And I want to see him versus Charles Oliveira so bad though. So for me as a fan, I want to see Oliveira versus Poirier for sure. I think that's the great fight to make. They both been in the UFC for so long. That'd be good to see them finally earn their shot and Poirier again, but Oliveira earn his shot and hopefully one of them get the fight done. But I get it. As far as long term, man, you want to fight. Nate Diaz might be the easier matchup, and it's probably going to be more money, so it wouldn't be a bad idea to try to go that way with it, and I think he's already has a belt to frame up in his house and all that stuff. As far as this, you're chasing legendary, you're trying to chase never working again, all that stuff. At this point, he's a veteran in the sport. He's going to probably make the smartest move, and that's probably chasing the money and maybe even an easier fight. So.
Good points on all those things. Look, I will never be the guy to tell fighters they shouldn't get paid more. I find it very weird that some fans do not want to see that, or they say I work 50 hours a week. I'm not asking for, I'm not about that at all. Let me just preface this by saying that I'm never going to be that guy. But it is a little disappointing in the sense that I'm also a merit guy. I'd love to see the best fight the best. And I just think I would rather see Poirier fight an Oliveira as opposed to him fighting a Nate Diaz, because I'll be honest, I would favor Poirier in that fight. He's been more active. He just knocked out Conor McGregor. Poirier's looked outstanding. And, no matter what, there'll always be Diaz fans who think this guy can go out and win a title. Power to him.
That's me. I'm like, oh yeah, Diaz. because
Yeah,
Diaz,
well, it's the
if he
same
beats
people who said
Poirier,
that had they let the fight go on longer with Masvidal in New York without the doctor stoppage, that he was going to turn things around. Like,
yeah,
what planet has Nate Diaz won a fight late? So,
that's I'm a huge Diaz fan, and so is my best friend. We're talking. He's like, yeah, he goes that fight goes later rounds that Nate Diaz wins. I'm like, bro, do the math. Like, has Nate Diaz or Nick Diaz? We say this. This is my like argument for years. They win the later rounds, and like every 5-round fight, I think they've lost. Like, I don't think there's a 5-round fight that Nick or Nate Diaz have won, sadly, but. Yeah, that's always my argument still. I'm like, the later rounds, they'd win for sure.
yeah, so kind of summarize it there. I mean, all the power to Poirier for getting the money fights. I don't disagree with that. I just think he's in a position now where he should be fighting for a title. I would like to see him and Oliveira. Like, that was the thing I was worried about if McGregor had won. I could see McGregor not wanting to fight in Oliveira because of the marketability of everything, right? Oliveira doesn't speak English. He's not it's not a money fight for Conor to take that fight, right? So I could see him not because Conor's scared. I want to get that out of the way. I hate that whole scared word in fighting. It's stupid. They step in a cage and fight for a living. But I'm just saying in general, I think with someone like Poirier, where he's not as big of a draw as Conor, you know, I don't see, like, I'd rather him, you know, fight the guys in the division and keep it going as opposed to, you know, letting Chandler fight for a title when, you know, Chandler has one UFC win. So anyways, that's my thoughts on it. I get it. I understand it, but I would prefer to see Poirier fight Oliveira if I was, you know, in charge of things. But
that's the matchup I like as far as championship goes too. I want to say keep Chandler back maybe a little bit. Maybe Chandler could fight McGregor or someone cool like that. But our Gaethje, that'd be a great fight. I want to see Oliveira fight for the belt for sure, and I want to see Poirier fight for the belt for sure. So that'd be great.
For sure. And Conor's next fight, I talked about this last week. It's got to be Tony Ferguson. 2 straight losses, catching Ferguson at a good time. I know he just had another child, so maybe he wants to take some time off, but or is about to have a child soon. But that's the fight to make. You know, a lot of history there. No, maybe Nate Diaz, Dan Hooker, you could do that too. But I think Ferguson and McGregor is a winnable fight for McGregor, and it's the biggest name right now he could fight in that division. Like, I think Ferguson's still bigger than a Gaethje or some of these other opponents, and I think it's a winnable fight for Conor. And that's what you need. Business is only good with Conor if he's winning, and you can't have him lose another fight. So
I think that's a super winnable fight. I think stylistically, that's a perfect fight for Conor if he can knock him out or drop him. It goes later on, who knows, man? Tony Ferguson's a motherfucker, but that's stylistically boxing and the crisper fighter. Conor wins that every day, you know.
Absolutely. So what's up with you, man? We might as well, as we're wrapping things up here again, if you guys have any questions, just post them in the chat here as we're closing things up in the show. But we know you had the shoulder injury against Brandon Moreno. Tough fight, by the way. I mean, kudos to you. You fought, I don't know how many times last year, was a lot, keeping very active. But what's the latest with you? When are you looking to get back in there, and how's the shoulder doing?
I got surgery 2 weeks ago. I should probably be in a sling, but I'm home alone, so nobody's. And when I'm at the gym, they all try to wrestle me and shit. So it's like I have to put a sling on to make sure that nobody touches me. But I probably have 5-month recovery, 4-month recovery from here. But just trying to get better, trying to even it out. I got kicked out of the gym last week by everybody who had shoulder issues before, and they're saying because I got it 2.5 weeks ago, and you don't see your doctor because COVID. It's hard to schedule times with them and get a hold of them because just COVID's been a pain in the ass. So I don't really know what I should be doing or not. And they're like, you can't be bouncing around. You just got surgery. So I was shadow boxing and kicking all the stuff. But so I'm going a little bit crazy. I'm really happy you invited me on the show because
anytime.
Because they said I can't go to practice today. And this is right during the practice times, you know what I'm saying? So I can finally
timing. Maybe I'm a mind reader. Maybe I knew that. I don't know.
Yeah, it was perfect. So this week I got kicked out of the gym. So I needed something to do. So I appreciate you.
No, always great having you on. A lot of good insight as well. So, you know, in terms of next opponent, I guess we'll have to kind of see and wait and see what happens with the division. Things could look very different 5 months from now. I imagine, are things going according to plan since surgery? Do you feel like things are headed in the right direction?
Yeah, I haven't been able to see my doctor too much, but everything seems good. I haven't been doing any damage on or anything. Just going stir crazy more than anything, but it's a good thing. I think everything works out perfect in the long run for me too, because the flyweight division's on hold. Brandon Moreno had a great fight and ended up in a draw. The flyweight division's on hold right now, so the fight's probably gonna end up in a couple more months, and then who knows what's gonna happen with Manal Cape and all that. So the flyweight division's on hold, and it kind of gives me a position to kind of weasel my way back through, just like I did last year. So just take advantage of what I can, and I'm happy I can finally get this injury taken care of and move on with my life and just train full time. So I can't wait and just capitalize on what I can now and improve as a person in my mind state, you know.
So what are you doing? Because I know you don't have the day job anymore. How are you keeping yourself occupied? I'm sure you at least get to. Do you at least get to hang out at the gym, maybe in street clothes and watch practice, or what? I guess you can't even go there now. They've kicked you out.
Yeah. So that's what I'm supposed to be doing. But when I go there, I'm an ADD spaz. I'll go there, I'll stand on the outside for a little bit, then I'm pacing, and the next thing you know, I'm shadow boxing, and next thing you know, like it just leads to one thing to another. Next thing you know, I'm wrestling Yusuf with the sling on and about to create disaster. So just going stir crazy, but I'm trying to get back in with the juvie. I don't want to work, but I want to be a mentor and go back as just like volunteer and just meet with the kids I worked with. I promised them that. That's the first thing I did when I left. I was like, I'm coming back as a mentor. Like if you guys want it, if you guys want me, suggest me. It's just been like the last 4 or 5 months have been so chaotic and crazy, going on from one fight to the next fight to the next fight. And then right afterwards I needed surgery, and just been kind of hard to take care of that. I've been a little bit on hold for that, and like a little bit of the COVID reasons, it's hard to like make it like a super timely on that. So I'm just trying to go back and volunteer, and I've been doing that, working with like little like kids with the gangs and all that stuff. So just kind of stick with that, and I want to dive in deeper with that because Denver has a big gang problem as of recent. So or at least maybe I'm just immersed in it and know a little bit more. But yeah, so
good for you, man. That's good. It's always good to give back. You get a sense of gratitude for sure, and it really puts things in perspective. Mind you, we've talked about this in interviews before. Are you watching any hockey this year? The Avs I think are doing pretty well.
I haven't watched any of it at all, man. I've been pretty behind on all.
Got to get the highlights. Nathan McKinnon, that guy might be one of the best players in the league. So we do a lot of hockey over here at Line Movement. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I'm behind on all that, man. Especially with the Avs. And
you know what you need to do? Get on a hockey pool. That's how I keep track. I'm actually first place in my hockey pool right now. It probably won't last, but it's that's the way to get into it. But anyways, let's get to some questions here. I know you guys have been waiting patiently. We'll do that before we wrap things up here. We got Waleed Reed in the chat saying, when is Brandon looking to come back? We already talked about that. In 5 months. We got BP with some fake news saying, I heard Brandon Royval versus Matt Schnell is in the works. Well, you heard wrong, because Brandon's not even ready to come back yet. So there you go. Gerald in the chat says Paige Van Zandt set to make her bare knuckle debut. Your thoughts? That's right. That's Knuckle Mania is this weekend. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know much about this Britain Hart girl she's fighting. I know she won her last fight, but look, I've always said this when Paige signed with bare knuckle, they're not going to give her fighters where they're going to, it's going to be too stiff a competition. I can't see them, because then that would just be bad for business. Paige is the female face of bare knuckle right now. So they're not going to give her a fighter that's going to completely dismantle. You're not going to get like Amanda Nunes type fighter in bare knuckle for Paige. So I would assume the fact that she's fighting Britain, I like I said, I don't know much about her, but I would think it's either a winnable fight or a fight where Paige isn't going to get completely cut up too much. So what do you think?
It would be a disservice for them to set her up for a loss. So I'm sure the business moves to set her up with a nice win. I can't believe she's in bare knuckle though. That's
money talks, you just talked about it there with Poirier. I think they gave her the best offer. I think more money than what Bellator was going to give her.
Yeah. It's wild to me that they're that they make that much money to give to fighters when I've been watching fighting my whole entire life. I don't think I bought a bare knuckle yet.
I haven't either. Yeah,
so,
I'm not. I'll be honest.
If you and I aren't watching it, then who the fuck is? You know what I'm saying?
I think you're right about that. I don't know. It's not for me. I don't know what it is. There's something about it. It just doesn't really situate well with me. I don't know. Like, I have nothing against it. Good for you if you want to make some money, but it's just not my thing. I don't know. I can't describe it.
Yeah, it's just like shittier boxing. It's like they don't kick or anything. They just fight bare knuckle boxing. It's just like, why don't we fucking have street fights at this point? And like, no disrespect to some of those fighters because they got there put heart and all that stuff. It seems a little barbaric to me. I know I'm an MMA fighter, but like that shit just seems more brutal than anything else I've done. And I don't know why, but like, meanwhile, my arm popped out in my last fight when this dude swung on me afterwards. But like, I don't know, it just seems brutal. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. And like, I don't want to see Paige Van Zandt get hit with a bare fist or any of that, or hit someone with a bare fist. Like, I don't know. It's one of those things that it's one of those stupid things that I don't know. And I don't know how they make money. Me and you aren't watching it. I've been a fan of every kickboxing, boxing, as far as I can remember, if I don't watch it, then who the fuck is to make this money, so.
Hey, James, I don't want to cut you off there, but you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the pay-per-views for like backyard wrestling that we used to get in like the mid 2000s that would sell for like $29.99 on DirecTV, Backyard Barbed Wire Brawl 3. And that's literally, I don't mean any offense like you guys. I know that everyone working there is putting their heart and soul into it, but that's what it reminds me of, like the sick niche aspect of just watching something weird or different.
Yeah. What about
great analogy, producer Jordan? Great job.
Logan Paul is like the real life celebrity death matches or whatever it is. Do you remember that like show?
Celebrity boxing. I always tell people the celebrity boxing in the 90s was one of the highest rated shows. I think it is the highest rated show ever on Fox. So that's why the YouTubers are getting into boxing. It's the new celebrity boxing, basically.
It's so cool. I'm so stoked about it. If you could just see two actors fight each other, I would buy that any day.
So would I.
So cool.
So would I.
I'd watch fighting in any form, but not bare knuckle, apparently. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's too bad we never got Wesley Snipes and Joe Rogan. That was apparently rumored. So,
yeah, right.
A couple more questions and we'll wrap things up here. We talked about the Dustin Poirier stuff. Is Gane and Rosenstruik headlining February 27th? They are. The weird thing is they never announced really why. It doesn't sound like Prohaska's out. I think it's something to do with Reyes, and they didn't say why. So I don't want to speculate here, but I am. I do wonder if it's something USADA related, because usually they'll tell you why someone's out of a fight. I mean, they've been pretty open about COVID. They're always open about injuries. I'm guessing that that's the only thing I can think of, because why have we not heard why Reyes is out of the fight? That's my only question.
Yeah. So some fighters, I think I was like looking at the dropouts on Tapology, and some of them are disclosed like, oh, this is an injury, and some of them are like, undisclosed,
Yeah,
and you gotta wonder,
happens
like,
every now and then.
like maybe they're trying to keep an injury a secret or some of that stuff, or maybe someone's not looking sharp or weight's high, or you gotta wonder a little bit of things like that. And as far as I've seen, like I in Colorado, they're not allowed to disclose, like if you fail USADA, they're not allowed to disclose that. And in Vegas,
well, you don't have to anyways with USADA, but it's just then you have speculation, right? Like that was the whole thing. I think O'Malley, that with him, like I think he came out and said that this had happened. I think same thing with Yair Rodriguez. He came out as well. So I don't think USADA's not allowed to put something out publicly. It's the fighter who has the option to do it. So we'll see. Again, we're not saying that that's the reason, but I do get a bit suspicious when we have not heard a reason on Monday. And this fight I saw over the weekend was off, right? And Prohaska had something on Twitter about it. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. A couple more questions here. What else? Royval. Oh, would Royval fight the winner of Cape and Pantoja? I mean, it would have to, I'm sure he'll fight anyone, right? I mean, it's just the timing of things, right? So
yeah, I'll fight anybody ranked above me for sure. But that being said, I think they're gonna fight and then they're gonna be off ready for the next fight right afterwards, and I'll be a little bit behind on that. But I wish I could fight that, or the winner of Askarov, Benavides would be great, or the loser of any of those too, by the way. Throw me in anyway, please. So I miss it.
We got Dan Tom in the chat. Shout out to Dan, who does the great job on our betting show every Thursday with Daniel Levy. So shout outs to James for bringing on an awesome guest. Love Brandon Southpaw and submission styling. Sounds like a solid guy with his work with kids too. Well, there you go. Compliments there from one of the best analysts in the game, Dan Tom. So there you go. It's always nice to hear. Max Holloway in the chat saying, I thought Yuri said Dom had COVID. Oh, maybe he did have COVID. I just didn't see anything about COVID.
Did you say Max Holloway was in the chat?
No, it's a guy who was
the one time you don't preface by saying it's not the real Max Holloway.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
I pulled up the tweet
Max
though.
Holloway's watching me?
Yeah, Yuri didn't say anything about COVID. He did wish his best wishes, but I didn't see anything in the translation or in the original tweet.
Yeah, no, that's true as well. We'll maybe answer two more questions there. I did want to comment on something quickly because I know everyone's talking about it, and it's a guy you fought. This whole Casey Kenny thing with Megan Anderson. Look, I've said this before. Kenny should have not said what he said on the podcast. It's unfortunate that that clip was taken out. Now everyone's seeing it, and it's unfortunate. But I know Kenny a bit because you guys obviously fought. It was on short notice, by the way. If people are looking at that being a loss, Brandon did step up, and I think you took that for Sid Bice, did you not? That fight with Kenny?
No. The Olympic wrestler.
Oh, Michael Perez. Yeah,
Michael
that's right.
Yeah, Michael Perez fell out the week of, and I got lucky and fought Kenny. But I just want to thank you for that, man. That's a fucking not setting me up with any dumb questions, because any way he answered that would have been horrible. If he would have said, don't get me into, I don't want to get Casey Kenny out here. I'm not trying to Casey Kenny myself out here, but any way he answers that question is going to be horrible. I've met Casey Kenny and I've trained with it, or I fought him, and I've got to hang out with him a little bit. I think he's like a kind person. I just feel like he got set up for a dumb question, and he's with his friends. And
I think he forgot he's on a huge podcast with Sean O'Malley. And look, as guys, we shouldn't really talk about that. Talk like that, anyways, in this day and age, especially. But I just I feel, because I know Casey's a good guy. He made a mistake. I guarantee you, he'll never say something like that again on a podcast. And it just so happened he did it to a fighter who already gets a lot of abuse online in Megan. And Megan has every right to be upset. I'm not saying that,
Agree.
And I think the other mistake is, and I'll kind of preface this by saying this is kind of something I would recommend to the fighters there. If you're going to apologize, do it in private, because if you put it on Twitter or any social media platform, the mob's going to come after you. And even if Kenny had a better apology, which I think he could have, it wouldn't have made a difference. Fans are still going to dissect the thing. They're going to come after him. It's just the way it is. So it's just unfortunate all around. But I think a good lesson to learn that, look, when you're asked something like that, that's maybe a little bit controversial, just say, hey, look, I had no comment. Just leave it at that. Because I'm sure this is a headache he doesn't want to have ahead of a big fight like he has against Dominic Cruz.
Yeah, he's the biggest fight of his life. And same thing with Megan Anderson. She's the biggest fighter of her life. And she however she feels about Casey Kenny, she has to go see him all week, you know. And
they're on the same card. That's what makes it even worse, right?
They're on the same card, and I think he fights right before her, and she fights right out. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what a fucking great card that is, man. Like, but yeah, it sucks all around. I feel bad for I feel for Casey Kenny in the sense of like I know he should not like I feel like he got set up for a dumb question, you know.
Yeah.
But,
and what O'Malley said before that was even worse, but it doesn't matter. Just a bad situation all around. But I wanted to get your thoughts because it is in the news, obviously. And again, we're not supporting anyone with that type of talk.
Yeah. And between those three, I think they're like all best friends. Like they train together. They have the same. So they're shooting the shit, saying stupid shit but they have a video camera live on like.
Yeah, so someone was going to see it. It happens, right? I mean, that's happened to me as well on podcasts where I've said something and maybe it wasn't the best thing to say, and then it's come back to bite me. So you just always got to be careful when you're on there, and just in general, just treat people well. I guess is kind of the best way to.
And just that's like you like when me and you do this interview, I'm over here saying like I don't want to say anything bad about like what's the name to get knocked out because I'm a 125 flyweight UFC fighter. I'm gonna have to see this asshole, and this asshole weighs 60 pounds more than
me.
You know what I'm saying? So in the middle of like doing this, I'm like. But it's going to be a close fight or like whatever it is because like, you got to be careful what you say on here. And
well, and that's a greater thing as well when it comes to media, right? There's a level of trust, that I'm not going to throw a question at you that's going to get you in any trouble. I feel like they weren't thinking of that at all in terms of the questioning and all that stuff. So,
yeah. And for Megan Anderson, how horrible. She just woke up one morning and got like, you know what I'm saying? Abused.
Yeah. Someone's speaking very badly of you.
I see that shit. Like sometimes I see that shit. Like someone writes some bullshit on my thing. And it's like, that sucks.
Just delete it and move on or ignore it. You'll never win with people online. That's a greater lesson anyone can learn. You'll never win a Twitter argument ever. It doesn't matter who you are. That's why Joe Rogan says it. Don't look at your mentions. Just, put your things out there and just, listen to people that you respect. I mean, why are you going to respect, Joe 5297 with a fake avatar, right? Like it's not going to do any good. So
it's a classic thought process of you can't get too high on what people say. You can't get too low on what people say. You're never going to be as good as you say. You're never going to be as bad as you say. Stay neutral with that. In case K's going to need to do that because people are going to say some horrible shit about him right now. And Megan Anderson, it has to do that anyways because people are saying horrible shit about her apparently anyway. So for both of them, man, I hope they just stay neutral and go out there and perform because Megan Anderson is fighting for a fucking belt. It's the biggest moment of her life, and I hope it doesn't play too much into her fight. And same thing with Casey Kenny. He's fighting fucking the best bantamweight champion there's ever been. You know what I'm saying? And he has to have that hit way heavy on him. So hopefully they stay neutral and if they go out there and let this get past them as soon as possible. But
very well said, Brandon. You certainly delivered here today on the show. Thanks so much for co-hosting. We'll get you back on here again. It's always good getting your analysis. I know you're going to have some free time over the next 5 months. We'll definitely get you back on here as long as it doesn't coincide with going to practice or whatever, even if you're just watching there. Just remind people where they can get a hold of you on social media and anything you got coming up or any sponsors you want to shout out. I'll give you the floor here.
I want to thank EAP Glass first and foremost for everything they do for me. They're great. They take care of me. And I couldn't have done the surgery without what I'm saying, without their support and all that. So makes life so much easier for me. And Brandon Royval on everything, Instagram and Twitter at least. I don't have a Facebook. But thank you for your time, man. Thank you for keeping me sane. I always need to I don't know, man. I've been going crazy this last week, so I appreciate you taking time out of your day to do this with me.
No problem. Just another reminder to everyone watching this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. All my good interviews end up on this channel. Like I said, we had Clay Guida on. We've had a lot of really good fighters. Jeff Neal, we had him on last week, first interview since the Wonder Boy loss. A lot of really good content here on Line Movement. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Lynch on Sports. And like I said, one more time, just make sure you subscribe to this channel and check out our betting show every Thursday. Dan Levi do a phenomenal job on that show as well. So make sure you check that out every Thursday. For James Lynch, myself, and for Brandon Royval, hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday and enjoy the fights this weekend.